Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Friends of the Show, a podcast where I talk to one of my internet friends. Today's friend is Jeff Da Silva at Jeff Da Silva on Twitter. Jeff is my very first Canadian guest, so lucky to have him, and also one of my original Twitter followers. We talk about how he got his start in comedy, how he balances work and family. We also find out what life is like in Calgary, and how he got to be one of Calgary's coolest dads. So please, without further ado, Friends of the Show, episode 12 with Jeff Da Silva.
A good stand-up, you lead the audience. You don't kowtow to the audience. Sometimes the audience is wrong. I always think that the audience is wrong. Zach Galifinakis.
Yes, words to live by, Zach Galifinakis. So welcome to Friends of the Show podcast. This week's guest, Jeff Da Silva, at Jeff Da Silva on Twitter. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, all right. Glad we can make it happen. You are actually the first Canadian guest that I've had, surprisingly.
Oh, wow. Where have the other people been from?
From the States, a few Brits, some
oh,
people
nice.
from England. So, yeah, multiple continents, but only, you're the first Canadian, hopefully first of many.
Oh, sweet.
So, what sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, hopefully I don't, I guess I represent like the April wine. You're making your CanCon contribution.
Yeah.
Are podcasts subject to CanCon laws and that sort of thing?
You know, I don't believe that they are, but that's a good point. I probably haven't hit the requirements so far, so I might need to up the CanCon. For those listening outside of Canada, there's a rule that you have to play a certain amount of Canadian produced content on the radio. So that's CanCon, the CanCon rule.
Yeah, it's an awful rule.
It's not great, but I think it is good. It's sort of like
it's good to promote people and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we gotta sort of give our own artists a little bit of a leg up sometimes.
Yeah,
because they get lost in the shuffle of all the U.S. artists.
Yeah, all these Biebers and Arcade Fires and those guys.
Yeah, great Canadian bands. Definitely check them out if you haven't heard of them.
Check out Justin Bieber if you haven't heard of him. Little guy from Strathmore, Ontario.
Shout out to Strathmore, Ontario. And you are actually joining us from, we should mention, Calgary.
Yes, yeah.
And that is not in Ontario. It's in a different province altogether.
Yeah. Do people need context as to what provinces are versus states? Okay. So provinces are like our territorial divisions in Canada. So we have, I don't know how many of them we have.
We got into this mess where we can't dig ourselves out if we don't know how many provinces and territories, right? Shout out to Nunavut and Northwest Territories.
Yeah.
but you're definitely in Alberta.
Over 8.
Yeah, well, let's not try to name them. We don't need to.
Yes.
Let's just keep moving on. As long as people know that you're from Canada, but a different part of Canada that I'm in.
Yes, our air quality is much better here.
Yeah, you're sort of out there in the middle.
Yeah, we're out there in the middle. There's not a lot going on. We're much colder. You guys have much nicer bodies of water, more humid environments. We get more nosebleeds out here. I don't know what else that differentiates us.
The cowboy factor.
Do you guys have a cheesecake factory over there?
Maybe in Toronto actually, but no, I don't think so.
You guys have a Wayne Gretzky's?
Yes.
Bar.
We got a Wayne Gretzky's. We got a Don Cherry's. We got all the hockey bars.
All the hockey bars. Wendell Clark, does he have a bar?
Yeah, Wendell Clark does. Or he did. I don't know if he does anymore. But he
did?
You think he got out of the business? Yeah. But yeah, it's a big part of the city. The hockey celebrity bars.
The hockey celebrity bar. Matt Sundin has a bar.
Maybe in Sweden.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. I'd like to go there one day.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, we had a guest from Finland on the podcast, so
Oh, cool.
yeah, we'll have to check that one out at malt_skull. It was a fun one.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So, anyways, I've known you for online for many years. So a real OG Twitter guy, as it were. Like back when I had like 200, 300 followers. We met through, I guess, mutual comedy circles. I heard about you, and you're very funny. So definitely got in there on the ground floor. So thank you for sticking it out with me on Twitter for this long. That's good.
Yeah, and you've exploded in the Twitter sphere. How did you come to know about me? Or who
I
did
think
you
it
know
had
Amanda
to be,
Perrin?
yeah,
Or
it had to
did
be
you know?
through definitely mutual acquaintance. Amanda Brooke Perrin, shout out to her. She is originally from Calgary.
Yes.
And that she moved to Toronto. That's where I got to know her. And then she opened up my eyes to a world of Calgary comedians like you and Will Weldon, who I hadn't known prior.
And cold fries.
Cold fries, yeah, and we'll definitely get to all these characters later on in the show. so,
Oh, that's great.
so yeah, very cool bunch, and yeah, I got to know you online. Really liked your comedy, and yeah, been best of friends ever since.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's always nice to actually talk to someone on the actual kind of like voice thing when you haven't. Like this is the first time that we've ever spoken in real life, but it feels like I know you to some extent. But I always anticipate like if I meet someone from the internet for the first time or something like that, that they're gonna have like I thought maybe you'd have like a very cartoonish like voice or something like that, like an old timey prospector. But you sound very normal, so that's nice. It's I'm always like, oh, I wonder how this person's gonna sound or whatever. So it's always a surprise. It's like a little movie or a little cliffhanger that I treat myself to whenever I chat to someone on the internet, which doesn't happen very often. But
Yep, I got a
no, it's
completely
always exciting.
normal voice. Nothing weird about this voice.
Yeah,
Hey.
You're like the Hank Azaria. Yeah, I was just like, oh, I wonder if he'll have a cartoony voice.
You know, sometimes I actually do.
Do you?
I can do a cartoony kind of voice, but we don't want to get bogged down in too much as we go.
You're the
deeper
rubber
into the show.
voice, like how Jim Carrey has his rubber face.
Yeah, or the Police
yeah.
Academy guy, Michael Winslow. I'm not.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
not like that guy.
Yeah.
That was a siren. Cool. All
cool.
right. So just if the listeners don't know about you, other than you're from Calgary, yes, very funny. You're a performer. You perform stand-up comedy in and around, so in the comedy scene. And if
Yes.
I am not mistaken, even interned at Conan.
Yeah. I guess my backstory. I used to do improv so we have an improv theater out here in Calgary called the Loose Moose Theater.
Okay.
And it had a variety of different people kind of come out of it, and I had some really great mentors out of that program or whatever it is, and that's where I met Will Weldon, and we both met during a high school theater sports tournament, and then also Dave Lawrence, who did the FUBAR movies,
Okay.
with Paul Spence.
Yeah.
He was someone who was older than me, who kind of watched me when I first started doing improv. And Levi McDougall, who actually ended up writing on Conan, but was Dimitri Martin's writer and tour mate for a long time. And then I don't know, we've had some like my friend Andrew is now on Kim's Convenience. It seems to produce a bunch of people who do stuff kind of abroad and within Canada. So it seems so that's how I got started. I think I just got started doing improv, and then eventually liked writing stuff. So I got into stand up, and then I don't know. I always kind of had like degree type things. Like I was very kind of scholastic. So I always kind of did this stuff on the side and figured if anything ever broke, then I could do it full time. And now my life is kind of a hybrid of the two, where I'll get into periods where I'm doing lots of stuff comedy wise, and then I'll do a lot of stuff, I guess, normal day-to-day career wise. So not too interesting. But in the scheme of things, I ended up doing a bunch of short films and eventually got offered an internship at the Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien.
Woo.
Was going to move down there right before it got canceled. And then the following year, I got to go intern at Conan proper on TBS. So.
Right. So you were there, yeah, that crazy transitional period where everyone was like, what the heck?
Yes, that was I was living it day to day. It was crazy when we were literally looking for sublets the day that TMZ was like, hey, Jay Leno's not happy about his position, about leaving NBC or whatever happened at that point. And I don't know if you remember that last Conan before, like the last Tonight Show before it got canceled, where Conan's like, if you're a nice person and you do lots of, I forgot the quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, but it's one of my favorite quotes, but I can't recall what it was. But it is like, if you just like keep on doing good things, amazing things will happen. It felt like when he said that, I remember watching it and being like, oh my gosh, my dream of working for this guy is crumbling. And it was like the saddest moment. But eventually I got to kind of go live out that dream.
Yeah,
and then made a bunch of friends in Los Angeles and stuff. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I don't want to gloss over the people that you mentioned, like Will Weldon, who's now out there in LA, does a cool show. And obviously Levi McDougall, very cool guy. He did a stint in Toronto as well. He was one of the Laugh Sabbath guys, and very, very funny dude. You can check him out on Conan. He's often in those Conan sketches. And yeah, you mentioned that he wrote for Dimitri Martin. I think he helped on the new Dimitri Martin movie, Dean, which is just coming out in theaters, or as of this recording, it's just coming out in theaters this weekend. So very cool stuff from the Calgary crew.
Yeah, I remember when like a lot of people in Calgary got to the point where they would either move to Toronto or quit, and a lot of people were going to Humber Comedy College, like the comedy program there. Mm-hmm. And so Levi was one of the first people to move, and then a friend of mine, Megan Fraser, moved out to Toronto, and I think she stayed there now permanently. And then Will moved out there. And I remember I was in a university program doing a psychology or doing an economics degree, and I failed something. I'd never failed like any sort of course before. I'm if the listeners can't see, I'm of South Asian descent, so I was naturally good at school, I guess. So I had never failed anything, and I came home to my parents. I'm like, I'm not good at this one thing that I failed, and didn't want to bother trying to get any better at it. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to move to Toronto to do comedy college. And they're like, we'll totally support you in doing that, but why don't you just like finish out your second semester of options and see if you like something, because it's nice to have like some sort of degree. And then I had a bunch of psychology options that second semester, and I really loved it. And I ended up meeting the person who became my wife in psychology afterwards, and just did my major in that, always with the plan of just doing comedy on the side and seeing what comes of it. So in the end, I got to kind of live out my dream, but it was like through some wonky circumstances. But I remember like when Levi moved there, I think his roommates were Tim Gilbert and Nathan Fielder.
Yes,
is what I understand, and both of those, like all of them, have very distinct comedic voices, but also like exactly my taste in comedy in terms of like things that I like and things that I find really funny. So.
Yeah, those guys, all three of those guys you mentioned are very funny. Listeners will probably recognize the name Nathan Fielder from the show Nathan From You on Comedy Central. Very funny, like one of the most innovative and original comedy shows that have come out in the last few years. Just so amazing. One of the best. And Tim Gilbert, very funny, one of Toronto's like funniest comedians. I'm hoping to get him on the show, so hopefully he can come on and everyone will see how funny he is, because definitely I want to tell everybody that Tim Gilbert, one of the funniest dudes out there. Yeah, and Levi McDougall, like we mentioned, everyone should already know he's writing on Conan, writing on the Dimitri Martin movie, so definitely one of the funniest guys. So it's a good cluster, a good group.
Yeah, it's a good group of people, and people seem to continue to do interesting things and stuff. So we'll see where that takes me.
Yeah.
But I continue to kind of be doing different things and have good opportunities come up here and there. So
yeah, and it's so great. You got to meet the love of your life, start your fam out there.
Yeah.
All the good stuff, and then still sort of dabble just enough to scratch that itch.
Yeah. And I think like come to the, like, as I've kind of done stuff, like I've come to the conclusion that I can continue to do both. Like I can be both a dad, family, normal person, and continue to do my other stuff. And to varying degrees at different points in my life, I'll be able to focus on one more than the other. But I've come to the, like, as I, even over the past, I think, couple of years, as my two daughters have grown up, I've come to the conclusion that, like, I'm finding so much more, I'm becoming so much more of an interesting person on the basis of what my actual experiences are. So I think, like, it's like if, I don't know what the quote is, but when they say that, like, almost you have to have lived some sort of life to be able to write about something.
Yep.
I feel like I'm in that stage in my life now where I'm like, oh wow, I'm experiencing all these great things and kind of starting to discover maybe who I am as a writer or comic or whatever it is. And it's giving me fuel and inspiration, that sort of thing. And that will eventually kind of accumulate into something that I produce at something or some undisclosed time. But I trust the process, I guess, because I could have never, back when I actually got to Internet Conan or whatever it is, I could have never anticipated, being from Calgary, that would have ever happened or whatever. But I just kind of, I think, like, I just continue to make stuff and put stuff out there constantly, and trusted that, like, if I found something funny, then eventually it would resonate with someone. And I got to do kind of what, when I was 15, I wanted to intern for Conan. So got to kind of live out what, like, I kind of got to peak too soon. I guess I got to do at age 26, 27, I got to actually live out my dream job. And then the rest of my life has been trying to piece together what to do from there. And I think I'll eventually land on some sort of path. But what I'm doing now seems to be like, it's really interests me and really kind of inspires me. So.
Yeah, I mean, hey, yeah. I love what you're doing. You're on all the social medias doing real fun stuff. I love it. I don't go on Facebook as much as I should, I guess, or I don't know. But you have real fun videos all the time on Instagram and on Facebook. A lot of stuff. You're commenting, funny statuses. You're out there. You're mixing it up, right? So you're living your life.
Yeah, mixing
on
it
one
up.
hand.
And I think, like, the key will be another guy who moved out to Toronto from Calgary is a fellow named Ryan Kukak. I don't know if he's involved with Comedy Bar and that sort of thing, but he's one of the funniest people I know. And he actually did. Eventually, I went and did my MBA, so like a master's in business at University of Calgary here. But he was doing his undergrad in management, so a Bachelor of Commerce. And so we're both like these kind of business majors that loved comedy. And so me and him have started collaborating on different writing things and that sort of thing. And I think that both our kind of voices complement each other and our processes kind of work. Like, he's really good at, like, getting stuff done, and I'm really good at, like, having ideas but not acting upon them.
Yes.
So those things really kind of complement each other. And I feel like beyond kind of the things that I'm doing on the internet, I bet I'd wager in the next couple of years we'll be having some writing stuff, and maybe find I don't know, end up writing for something or doing something in that kind of vein. And I still plug, I love performing. I love, like, doing live comedy and that sort of thing. So as my day-to-day life starts to settle down, yeah, I plan to be doing more. I think, like, the cool thing about someone like Amanda Perrin is that she, like, performed so much and built such a community around herself while also doing things on the internet. That it really helped to kind of, like, really, really magnify her social media presence and stuff like that. Because I think, like, people can, like, read what you write, which is, like, one thing on Twitter, and you can build an audience from there. But I think, like, once you're out in the community doing podcasts or what have you, and doing things where people can actually get to meet you and get to know who you are, really, you can actually really, really kind of start to build up an audience or whatever it is. So just like amazing examples of people who build communities around themselves. So.
Yeah, really great. A lot of great people. And I'm glad to hear that you're still in it, still writing away, and look forward to your future content.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I have to say, your Twitter has exploded in, I would say, what, the past 2 years or year and a half?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's definitely been a huge explosion over the last couple of years, from like 300 to whatever, a few thousands. And happy to have friends like you along the way.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome. I think like most of the people I met from Twitter turned out to be pretty cool, nice people, and very. Maybe it gets right to the core of who you're so kind of nakedly sharing kind of whatever thoughts you have, that the people who resonate with that stuff end up actually being people that you would get along with in real life. Because I've had, for the most part, like hit it off really well with anyone that I've kind of met via Twitter. In real life, so, or like when I've talked with them or whatever it is, it seems like, oh, we already know each other, but we're actually just talking a different medium. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of this podcast too, to put a voice to some of the friends that I've met, because a lot of cool people out there.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not being terribly boring.
Listeners, write in if you think Jeff is being boring up to this point. Send us a tweet at Jeff DeSilva on Twitter. No, this will be out in several weeks. I think mid-July this will be out. So
we could like make predictions or talk about things that we think are going to happen in several weeks.
Yeah, so July 15th, I think, is
see
what
if they come true.
Yeah.
So, like, just what movie's coming out 2 weeks from now?
I don't know, but we're already past Canada 150, right? We've already partied through Canada's 150th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
July 1st.
I got to see Tegan and Sarah at the Riverfront Canada 150 celebration, and boy, it was good.
Oh, I bet that was a great show.
Edit out everything I said before, and just we'll make it about the Thor movie and stuff like that.
Yeah. Be sure to go see Thor Ragnarok in theaters now.
In theaters today.
Yeah.
In this moment right now. So I think that's cool. That'll come out in 2 weeks. Hopefully we're around then.
Yeah, I hope the world still exists, but if the world doesn't exist, be sure to tweet us and let us know. FOTS pod on Twitter. So we should keep this podcast train rolling. Yes, okay. And your story that you are going to share with us is entitled How I Got My Dad Bod in 8 Steps or Less.
Yeah, so I was trying to think of a title and trying to summarize what we would talk about here. I think like what I guess that came to me in terms of, I once again kind of reiterating what I was talking about with me really kind of starting to find who I am and what my comedic voice is via my children and via like Instagram stories, really. Like, I had come to Twitter from a performing background. In performing or like doing stand-up and doing improv and stuff like that, I always felt like I had I kind of felt like I figured out not exactly my voice, but I had like some timing that didn't really come across on Twitter, I think.
Right.
Or like I felt like I could write and that would be a certain kind of character on Twitter or whatever. And I felt like I could also perform, and the way I'd perform would be different, or it was more authentically myself, I guess. Then I went to Los Angeles and saw like the most amazing comedians I could possibly imagine. So they used to still do Comedy Bang Bang live, like Scott Aukerman's $5 comedy show where like Zach Galifinakis would show up and Aziz Ansari would show up to test his material and what have you. Like all the best people used to show up for $5. So while I was living in Los Angeles, me and my wife went every Tuesday to watch Comedy Bang Bang at the UCB Franklin Theater, and I got super inspired. And at the same time, another show had started maybe about 6 months prior to us moving there called Meltdown with Kumail and Jonah Ray. So I was being exposed to all these like amazing comedians, and I think like I came back and kind of drifted from what I was doing a little bit because I was wanting to emulate. Like I got to see John Mulaney right before maybe New in Town or one of those specials, and
Oof, just killer.
Yeah, just killing. And in Los Angeles, they committed so much to their, like they were so fleshed out sometimes, some of these comedians, and watching them, especially at those shows where it was like the cream of the crop people, that I was like, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna like write like almost like Paul F. Tompkins style, very wordy, very like not thoughtful, but like I don't know, like poetic type comedy. And then I was gonna deliver it theatrically, and I think I came back and had moved away from me just being kind of goofy one-liner Jeff. I was like, this is my kind of ticket to, like, I've always been in search of kind of what my comedic voice was. And then I feel like I kind of lost myself. Like I was trying to kind of emulate all these people I looked up to. And then around that time, Netflix became available, and comedy on YouTube was available and that sort of thing. So I think I like had trouble differentiating myself from my influences. So all this stuff was available, and then I was like listen to Tig Notaro and then sit down and write like a joke that sounded like Tig but didn't quite sound like myself.
And sounds like you're overthinking it, Jeff. Sounds like you were overthinking it.
So I was overthinking it, and then stopped kind of performing for a while, and then started. Like every time I had a different kid, I started and stopped and took breaks and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then just I don't know, like 6-7 months ago, Instagram stories came out, and I knew that they had like Vine and stuff like that before, and I was kind of dabbling in that in different ways and stuff like that. But with Instagram stories, I started like, because that was my place to kind of capture some of my memories of my kids and that sort of thing, and the day-to-day things that I was doing with my daughter before I had my second daughter. And then the feedback and like people writing to me or people I'd run into, it was like super positive in terms of like, oh, keep on doing those silly videos or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's actually like the most like me that I can be online, I guess.
Yeah,
like
you
it's
found
the
your
most
true
like
voice, and it's a dad voice.
Yeah, it's totally a dad voice, but it's like totally like, so I think like that. Yeah, that's what my title that's what my title means in that long rambling thing, is that I kind of found my comedic voice through my dadhood, I guess, and now I'm starting to explore that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and the videos are really funny. I don't think I can really play any on the podcast. There's not much audio value in that, right? But go check out your Instagram. You're Jeff De Silva at Instagram?
Yeah. And then I had the good fortune of a blogger in Calgary named Mike Morrison start to kind of notice my writing on Twitter. And then I also am followed by a few late night Colbert writers. Just one of the people that interned with me ended up writing for Colbert, and then a few other people who had randomly started following me at different points in my kind of Twitter stuff started following. So in that kind of period as well, recently, one of these people retweeted something of mine, and then Andy Richter retweeted it, which was like super exciting and cool, and was like a reminder to like keep on doing stuff and keep on making stuff, and you don't know who's going to notice as long as you kind of keep on creating stuff that you're proud of. And I don't know, so
that's a recurring theme of the podcast, Jeff. You just keep at it, you keep your head down, keep working, and then boom, Andy Richter retweet.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know what comes. I think like all of that has to be paired with like, if it depends on what your kind of ends are for whatever you're doing, I think. But I think like if I want to be a writer, then it has to be paired with me having the discipline to actually write scripts and stuff like that, and just continue to use Twitter and all these other outlets as a way to kind of draw attention to myself and say, hey, I write regularly. And then if that kind of leads to the right connections or right network, you can definitely probably leverage that to at least get your work seen by people who could give you good advice. And then from there, it's just maybe luck. So
yeah, it's a slow crawl, right? But as long as you keep sort of inching your way towards your goals, and it's important to have goals, Jeff, like your goal of being an internet Conan. Guess what, 15-year-old Jeff? You did it.
We did it.
You did it.
do you want to? Do you have some desires to be a sitcom writer or stand-up comedian or?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I would like to do in the end, Sort of like you, maybe like keep dabbling in it as a hobby and then see what happens, see where it goes. Because like you, yeah, I'm making a lot of very cool, funny, and influential friends, and who knows if we will be able to collaborate on future projects, because I'd love to. Love to do funny stuff and, yeah, put it out there for everyone to see, like a podcast.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just such a great medium. I don't think I'd know anyone outside of Calgary if all these things. Well, it's a great medium. It's also leading to the downfall of everything as well.
Oh yeah,
so.
it's a blessing and a curse, but what are we gonna do?
But we get to read all these hilarious things, and at the same time as the Kofifi thing or whatever that just happened 4 weeks ago. That there's something of beauty of watching a collective kind of consciousness react to the craziest thing to ever happen in my lifetime. And I think that's a neat thing via social media. So if you can ignore all the bad people and stuff and whatever, then it's cool that it exists. I'm happy.
Yeah, definitely a jungle out there. You got to avoid the bad stuff. You got to kind of gravitate towards the good stuff. All right, so let's get into the tweets. You have sent me 3 tweets of your own concoction that you like. So the first tweet, super bummed out. Just read some other guy on Facebook has the best mom.
Yeah, so you want to kind of play by play?
Yeah, it's a tweet around Mother's Day, I'm presuming. It
was a tweet around Mother's Day, and everyone was writing about how their mom was the best. Mm-hmm. And my mom isn't really often on Facebook. She maybe sometimes checks out my dad's Facebook and stuff like that. But I was just trying to. What happened was this blogger in Calgary retweeted something of mine, and Katie Lang of Ken Con fame,
Katie Lang,
started following me, and
what?
So then it made my goal over the next few weeks to write things that I thought would maybe resonate with her, kind
of just Katie Lang centric content.
Katie Lang. So I've just been plugging away and trying to do that. I think why I kind of selected this is that in this kind of journey to kind of find my comedic voice, I think that there's times where I was trying to write there's times when I'll write something really kind of insular or maybe a reference that not everyone will get, and that's cool and stuff like that. But I also have been starting to try and write to see what's going to get a lot of what's going to be broad enough that it's going to appeal to Katie Lang. And what's interesting about all that, and what I think the topic of what we're trying to talk about here, is that because Twitter, you get an endorphin rush every time someone likes something or favorites something or retweets or someone gives you a shout out or whatever it is, there might be a possibility that might be a not great approach in terms of my writing. Right. Sometimes it's great because maybe you can build a broader audience and stuff like that, but sometimes you end up either just making it so broad that there's no resonance with who I am or whatever it is. In this case, this was something that actually a joke that I've done on stage and stuff like that, so I was kind of okay, whatever, it's resonates with me. But I was using that as a platform to talk about how Twitter as a medium can certainly push people to write in different ways, and whether that's good or bad or not, I think it's something to pay attention to, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And it turns out that guy does have the best mom.
Yeah, he definitely does.
I mean, just the best. Okay, so the second tweet that you sent is a very funny one, and it is it's kind of it's David Blaine's email signature, and it says, "Sent from your iPhone."
And that's exactly how it should be read.
Yeah.
I don't know. I watch so much. I like magic and ghosts, and and
Magic and ghosts.
I don't know, like garbage,
Together at last.
like magic and ghosts and wizards and stuff like that. And so I tweeted that twice in my kind of Twitter career. I think you caught that I had written it once, and then the second time around, I just did a screen cap of email, and it was around the time that David Blaine had his latest special or whatever.
Yeah, he was doing something.
I had a few more followers, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna put this out there again. And that one happened to be the one that got a bunch of play. So that's another lesson for Twitter people, is that sometimes you write something really great in the infancy of when you started writing out things, and maybe at that time you didn't have the followership, or maybe you didn't. Who knows? It may have been the time of day. I tweet a lot at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I don't stop myself, even though that might not be prime time or whatever, to get a lot of. It's just like when I find myself most kind of creative, and also I'm awake at that time and free at that time.
Yeah.
So I think another lesson is like, don't give up on, like, if you write something that you find funny, you might be able to. Megan Amram, like, I see her retweet herself, and different people, like I think Rob Delaney used to do that too, is you'd see something that he tweeted a long time ago, and then he'd retweet or just rewrite the same joke, but he had a bigger followership at that point, and then you would see it kind of get some play or get lots of retweets.
Yeah, and it's fun to see an old joke do well, especially when you didn't know about if it was going to be funny or not, because you only had 13 followers at the time when you tweeted it, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I like that tweet, I guess. So
yeah, it's great. Tweet so nice, you tweeted it twice.
Yes.
Great. So the third and final Jeff De Silva tweet that we will be examining tonight is your favorite tweet, you say. This is your favorite Jeff De Silva tweet. And it go like that. Does your screenplay feature a sweet whale that jumps over stuff? No? Well, it probably sucks compared to my movie, Fly Whale, The Jumpening.
This one... So I don't know how to like search my back tweets other than like if I like downloaded them all via the Twitter native website or whatever it is.
Jeff.
But you can do it really quick. So.
Yeah, there's like parameters that you can use. So if you want to find a Jeff De Silva tweet, you could do from : Jeff De Silva, and then any keywords that you can think of. I don't know, like fly whale, the jumpening, and then you'd find fly whale, the jumpening, and it would come right up. Or you can find any tweets that have fly whale, the jumpening in it. Like if there's more than one, they would all come up, and then you can find them right there, and you can retweet yourself like you're mentioning. You can direct message them to some friends. Hey, did you miss this?
Yeah.
Fly whale.
The jumpening.
Yeah, you can't forget that.
So when I graduated from my MBA program and came back from Conan, I thought I was going to just jump into like a really high paying job. Like I in my brain or whatever, I thought like either I was going to be a writer for Conan or some star, or I was going to come back here and with my degree get some like great job and I'd be able to move on with my life. But it didn't happen. Like it turns out that one, I didn't have a ton of work experience, and then two, I can't just in life. You can't just rely on like what your credentials say. You actually have to go and meet people and network and actually actively work to try and get a job. So for like a year, yeah. What's that?
I was just like, nah. Do we?
Yeah. For a year, after that, thinking I had my golden ticket to stardom or whatever it was, I just did temp job like via kind of the temp agency here. And I remember like going to the Coca-Cola factory and I was counting bottle caps for like $8 an hour or something like that.
Damn.
And I had a great degree and a great kind of life experience, and thinking like, oh, I guess I'm going to be like just Joe bottle cap counter, which was cool. Like I met someone who knew Bruce McCulloch from Kids in the Hall and had like literally like his whole career, or like his early career, they used to like load Canada Dry onto flats, and Bruce was this funny guy back then, and it was like, and they were like, they at one point they were like, Jeff, if you want to be here forever, we can make that happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if I can like count bottle caps
Yeah.
forever. And I wanted to have kids and a family and that sort of thing. And I remember at that time, I just like Lil Wayne. So I listened to a lot of rap music, and Lil Wayne kept on doing the Drought series of mixtapes and that sort of thing, and would just like almost free associate, put rap albums out.
Okay.
And so at that time, I was like at my parents' house and married, or at my in-laws' house and married, and not making very much money and had no way to get it out. So I was just like, I'm just going to write everything that comes to my mind. Like no barriers, and like throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, I guess. That kind of arose from that kind of free creative period where I was just like, I felt like some of the tweets from that time were like my favorite things, but I didn't have a ton of followers at that time. It was like throwing into a void. But I felt like really creative and really trying to give it my all in terms of like, here, notice me, or like, I think during that point, at a certain point, like people like Blaine Capatch and Deborah D. Giovanni and stuff started following me. So I think like it did result in some fruits and really cool things. But at the time I was just like, and that tweet in particular, I just like always laugh because I like things that are like almost Simpsons-esque or like goofy cartoon, like a cartoon world, and kind of absurd. So,
well, it's a very delightful tweet. Thank you for sharing those with us. Yeah, shout out to Blaine Capatch.
Yes.
Very funny. Yeah. He is great. So now we get into the tweets from other people. First tweet you have selected is from Connor O'Malley at Connor_O'Malley on Twitter. One of the big boys of funny jokes. So his tweet is, for my honeymoon, me and 15 of my boys are going to Tampa.
I love Connor O'Malley. I see there's certain like people who are like certain writers and certain, oftentimes it's people who end up actually being tied to like the old Conan days, but like Andy Blitz and what's his name? Like a lot of the people who produce on like Review and like Nathan For You or like John Glazer, like there's certain type of people who their comedic voices resonate with me so much, and I don't know if it's because as a 15-year-old staying up and watching all those old Conans, there was something that resonated with that. And then Connor O'Malley was a writer for Seth Meyers, but he did a bunch of kind of like shorts and like Vine stuff. And I find that like his Twitter is so, his voice and his character shines through so much on his Twitter feed that without the context of like that all of his tweets are like this kind of coming from this one voice, you'd be like, oh, what's so funny about that? But like there's so many things funny about that, like even that particular tweet to me, I guess. So I don't know if it resonates with you or whatever, but
yes, and it is also because I do know the Connor O'Malley character, the voice of it, but that definitely does help.
Yeah, I just think it's like interesting because there's like, you can write the perfect joke, but some people are really good at like, and it's gotten harder during the kind of Trump era when everything's getting 1,000 retweets if it's a great political joke or whatever it is. Yeah. It's gotten hard for people to really hash out those really great characters, and that almost like, I don't know, it's like what, like Rob Delaney when he was kind of, before he hit 1 million followers and moved to the UK and bombed on Kimmel or whatever it is, like when he had his voice fleshed out, you could kind of predict that was something that character would say. And I think like Connor O'Malley does that so great. I think I just read that one that he's now married to Aidy Bryant, or they got engaged.
Oh, is he?
And then two, I don't know if he's writing at Seth Meyers, so that makes me excited that either he's going to have his own show, or something big is going to, he works with Joe Pera a lot, and I find Joe Pera really resonates with me in terms of things. So yeah. I don't know. That was one of my favorite things.
Yeah, great. Definitely give him a look and check out the old Vines. I don't know if they're still up, but his old Vines were very, very funny too.
Yeah, on YouTube there's a big compilation of him, and he started doing it on Instagram story too, which is just great. I don't know, he's the best.
Yeah, everyone should move to Instagram stories. I think that's the moral of the podcast.
Yes.
Great. Okay, second tweet that you have sent in is from Brendan O'Hare at Brend O'Hare, another one of the classic funny dudes. So this tweet is, a good bus driver has no tolerance for passengers who try to get everyone on one side of the bus to try and tip the bus over.
Yeah, once again, someone who I feel like his comedic voice is really present throughout everything that he writes. So he has more of like an innocent, and he is like a younger
Just a
dude.
young guy.
He has more of a more of an innocent, boyish kind of charm to all the things that he writes. And I oftentimes find myself like I go through periods where when I'm looking for inspiration, I'll visit the same accounts over and over again. And I go constantly to Connor O'Malley and Brendan O'Hare's Twitter accounts because I find that something about what they write oftentimes will make me like actually physically laugh out loud. And I think that's a goal for like when I write now. I try and think of like what's going to make me laugh, like beyond like what's going to get a lot of play or what's going to like I don't know,
there's a difference
be big.
in,
I'm like, what's gonna like make me giggle?
Yeah, there's a difference between a joke being like clever and you people go, that's clever, or something making you physically laugh, on the subway or whatever.
Yeah, like I just Nathan For You is my favorite show on TV, and it consistently and lo and behold, like there's a bunch of old Conan producers and writers or whatever who helped to create that show. And Nathan's voice is so distinct and so like if you look at Nathan's old Toronto, like when he was collaborating with Chris Locke and when he used to have like a little blog and stuff like that. His voice was so fleshed out at that point and so funny. Like this, I think someone gave me a link to like he just had like a blog where he was posting photos of himself at parties.
Nice.
And it was so much like who he is now and what the comedy that he's making on TV. But like watching Nathan For You, actually there's points where I have to leave the room because I'm like crying, laughing, or like watching Review with Andy Daly. Like those things, I don't know. I'm such a nerd about some comedy stuff. Or like Rory Scovel is my favorite kind of stand-up comedian going right now. And I just love like almost like a mischievousness to certain people's comedy and a little shit disturbery type stuff, like the Bone Zone podcast guys and that sort of thing. Brendan O'Hare seems to have kind of like a little kind of shit disturber type vibe to the stuff that he does. Like it's a little more silly and a little bit more innocent than say Connor O'Malley, but like Connor O'Malley has this great video where he goes into Burger King dressed as a McDonald's employee, and it's like it's so funny. It's the funniest thing. So like I just like those things, I guess, and that's why I picked those two in particular to talk about.
Yeah, those are great. And now finally we come to a local Canadian person, Sarah Adams, right? At Sarah Adams. Saragh Adams. And the tweet that you have selected is, she says, Waldo goes to India, finds himself.
Yeah, so Sarah Adams is a friend of mine from Calgary, and I would say she's has quite a Twitter following, quite a social media following and presence and stuff like that, but she's a brilliant writer. I just there's been some things that I would say, and I was trying to find also one, like Amanda Parent too, like her and Sarah, I find from our community, they're really, really brilliant writers that they sometimes so succinctly get it. Like Sarah's joke there is so succinctly put. And I like things when they're like, if someone can make a joke in like 3 or 4 words, Megan Amram sometimes does this, where it's just like such a well thought out and phrased joke. I don't know. There's something like the art to some of that. I mean, I'm just going to share your he moped joke as well, because I think like there's something really nice and brilliant about these people who can craft these perfect one-liners, and Sarah's a brilliant comedic mind who also has a legit art background. So I just find there's I don't know,
there's levels.
You really get there's like levels to what she writes, and I think she wrote this other tweet that I think was going to be one of the ones I'd recommend to check out. That was about, do babies know that they're crowd surfing all the time or something like that? Like it was phrased like that. And it was so funny. Like it was such a astute observation about something that I thought, I was like, oh, this person is so brilliant. And she like, when she like started to build, like, she probably could like talk more about how she built up her social media presence and stuff like that. But like, it was just amazing to see the trajectory of people kind of jumping on board and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's great to see
like all of these
when people get noticed. Yeah. When
I think you, Amanda Perrin, Sarah, like all of you guys have like ascended to the stratosphere of tons of followers and stuff like that. Whereas I wallow in the depths of, I got like a good 1,000 people, but they're like, they're a dedicated group, but they're not they're not accumulating beyond that. But
Jeff heads,
I'm okay with that.
Well, definitely after this podcast drops, the numbers will skyrocket.
Oh yeah,
right, listeners, get out there, hit that follow button at Jeff DeSilva. Okay.
I always get self-conscious too after I get, like, I always felt like when I started to get people that I used to respect, or like comedians that I used to look up to, I started to get nervous about what I would write and start to be like, oh, I wonder if Matt Bronger is going to like this, or if some of these people who follow me, I was like, oh my gosh, now this person's following, and like, I think that's a bad thing on my part. Like, I think like you got to keep on being true to what brought you to the game in the first place. Versus
got that right,
get
Jeff. It's the recurring theme.
Do.
It's the recurring theme. You just got to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So
great. So we now move on to questions submitted via Twitter for Jeff. Now, you are the first guest from Calgary, and I felt bad because I hadn't had a lot of Calgary-themed content. So I reached out to some of Calgary's most well-known friends of the show. We've also talked about these people already in this show. So the first question comes from Amanda Brooke Perrin at Brooke Perrin on Twitter. Everyone, please follow this very funny lady. She asks, Jeff, who are your Calgary-themed enemies?
Monty's. So there used to have Monty's traveling reptile show. Was like a big kind of local television show in Calgary, and I don't know if Monty's alive anymore, but I remember like meeting him at the Calgary Stampede, which is our big like yearly event where everyone dresses up like a cowboy. and as a kid, I remember meeting Monty, and it wasn't as nice as I thought he would be. So he's my Calgary themed enemy, I guess.
Calgary nemesis.
I don't know. Oh, I have a rivalry with people I like very most often chat with from a day-to-day basis are a group of guys who we will term the F word guys. We actually use the actual word when we refer to ourselves in our group chat, but it's my friend who's at Chet Friendly. His name's Ian Day, who was part of my kind of sketch group or whatever it was that we had, and then my friend Evan Wilson, and then my buddy Ryan Kukek, and I would say that Evan for a while was my like go-to Calgary themed enemy, because I would just like trash talk him being from Amherst, Nova Scotia, and make fun of Amherst a lot. And we used to have kind of a friendly rivalry, but now we're all in this group chat till the end of time. So.
Oh, that's great. Evan Wilson used to be around on Twitter more, but now I guess he's like running pipelines through the environment or something. So
yeah,
shout out to Evan.
Yeah. he works for well, I won't say who he works for, but he made his tweets private for a while, and then now I think I think a lot of people jettisoned off Twitter post-Trump, because it was that whole thing of like only this political content was getting a lot of play. Yeah. And at that time, I even felt like I was like, should I just give up? Like, should I just focus on performing stand-up or whatever it was?
Instagram stories.
But then I was like, yeah, Instagram stories. And then but what I did was I just plugged through. I just like, and through that was like another fruitful period in Twitter where like one of my heroes retweeted me. So like, I don't know. I think like you can't if you find it a useful way to creatively express yourself, then just don't stop.
Yeah, I agree.
Keep on doing it.
Keep on doing it. That's the theme. So the next question comes from Avery Ragella at Cold Fries on Twitter. And he asks, Jeff, who is your favorite Calgary millennial?
So I'm actually still a millennial, so I think I'll qualify myself as my favorite Calgary millennial. I think Avery wants me to say that it's him.
Yeah, I think he was kind of fishing. He was definitely fishing.
Yeah, I think he's kind of fishing. I would definitely, and no, I think Avery's like, or maybe like
he's like top.
I think like even Will Weldon would be a Calgary millennial.
Yeah.
Amanda Perrin's also a millennial. We're all millennials.
Yeah. Me too.
Avery,
I'm not from
Calgary.
But...
yeah. I'm just Avery's he's another person who's so funny and so talented and such a good writer and such a nice, good human being in person, and also has the ability to do stand up. So every now, like, I go through runs where I start up different kind of open mic shows or talk shows or different live shows, and I like to feature people who aren't necessarily everyday stand-up comedians, but are super funny either on Twitter or in real life. Like, and Cold Fries, Avery is such a funny person and has there's so many people sometimes in the city who are like, the pop culture train is just a little slower than like what the references would be in Toronto or like they're still like talking about like, oh, like Nickelback sucks, or like some like if you go to like some open mics or whatever it is, there's like a crop of young people who are like really like, they like know what lit means or whatever it is, or they like using all the slang or whatever. And I think that like Avery like listens to rap music and watches basketball, and I don't know. So I guess he's my favorite millennial. He's given me free candy from time to time at the place that he works at. So
that is the sweetest plum. So
yeah.
Shout out to Cold Fries. I don't even know. Like, I guess I kind of met him on Twitter through you, I guess, in the Calgary connection. But yeah, just like a dude on Twitter, and yeah, very funny, and like a real taste of Calgary millennial life, right? A real slice of life.
Yeah, and he's followed by Graham Clark, I think, and I think he has some pretty cool followers, and I think also it's one of those cases that I'm sure either his Twitter will take off and he'll do enough writing, or his comedy stuff will take off if he decides to focus on that. It's just up to, like, it depends on what he decides he wants to kind of do, but just like an actual like person who makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And all these people that I mentioned from Calgary are all people that like I'm super excited to see in person. I was at the John Mulaney concert with Evan, who I mentioned a couple days ago, and it was just filled with Calgary comedy writer type people throughout the audience. And as I was leaving, I ran into at Cold Fries, and I was like, oh, that was a highlight.
Yeah, that's great.
Although Mulaney was a highlight. He was amazing.
Mulaney. I can't say enough about Mulaney. My favorite stand-up comedian for sure. I'm going to be checking him out in September at JFL 42 in Toronto. So if any Mulaney fans are out there, come on now.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's it.
I was going to say that he was so good and so amazing that I think he might be like the best of this generation of stand-up comics.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was so good.
I can't wait. Truly my favorite by far. Check out everything he does, except maybe the failed TV show. But for sure, one of the best stand-ups, if not the best at the moment, in my opinion, John Mulaney. Everyone, check him out.
Cool.
At Mulaney on Twitter. Okay, we come to the final question of the Calgary-themed questions, and it comes from, often mentioned on this show, Will Weldon, and you can find him on Twitter at OldManWeldon. And his question is simply, Jeff, what is Calgary?
I think Will has kind of lost his roots a little bit, because I think he would know what Calgary is, I guess. But it's like a city in the Midwest of Canada, population about 2 million, boundaried by I guess Airdrie to the north and Okotoks to the south. It's more like it's more of a city than a concept.
Home of the Stampede, Jeff. Home of the Stampede.
Calgary's slogan should be like, "We're near Banff" or something like that. I don't
Poor
know,
Calgary.
but there's so much. There's such a. The one thing I will say is that like Calgary, you can actually like go on stage and like try stuff out without any consequences.
Right.
And there's like lots of young people looking for stuff to do, so you can create stuff and people will come and check it out and stuff like that. So in terms of developing as a comedy person or like building a community around yourself, you can totally do it here versus trying to participate in something that already exists in, say, a larger city like Toronto. Could be a bit intimidating, and you might be overwhelmed with the amount of options in terms of performing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so any up-and-coming Toronto comedians, head out to Calgary. It's just less pressure.
Yes, and I also just want to say that like all the people I met from Toronto, yourself, all these kind of Laugh Sabbath people, and all these people who I've kind of come into contact with via Twitter. Have been so supportive and so awesome, and so I feel like there was at a certain point where I was like felt more connected with what was going on, at least in Toronto comedy, versus what I was participating here in Calgary. So I think like that's really, I don't know, from my perspective, people have been really cool and really nice and continue to write lots of stuff. I like that Stephen Risk Twitter account. I don't know who runs it, but it makes me laugh so hard.
I'm not 100% sure who created that or runs it, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that I know who it is. Very funny, at Stephen Risk, I think, on Twitter. Up and coming comedian from Halton region. All right. So funny. It's just like musings on comedy itself. Pretty funny stuff. So I guess that brings us to the end of the show. If there's anything that you are promoting, anything you want to do a shout out, now is that time.
Follow my friend Ryan, go to any of my friend Ryan Kukek's shows in Toronto if you or Toronto-based listenership, because I think he's like a hilariously talented, good person, and super, super funny. And then I don't know, I started making t-shirt designs and found a place that was printing t-shirts really cheap and stuff like that. So I made like just dumb puns that I wouldn't tweet, but I was like, oh, this would be good on a t-shirt. So
not good enough for a tweet, but good enough for a t-shirt.
Good enough to wear on your body, but not enough to like
not on your feed
with your eyes.
Not
not something to be casually ignored, but something to wear on your body. But right. I made a t-shirt that I don't know who it's for, but I know fidget spinners were big, and I thought, I could make a pun with that. So I made a t-shirt with O.J. Simpson trying on the like bloody glove, and then put a Photoshop like a fidget spinner silhouette, so it's like all in silhouette. Pretty cool t-shirt, and it says, "If it doesn't fit, you must fidget," or something like that.
Okay.
And it's, I think, if you have a child that's into fidget spinners and was into the recent 5-part O.J. Simpson documentary on ESPN, this would be a perfect coming together of those worlds. So if they have a birthday, like a third birthday coming up, or like maybe a first Christmas, like go to society6.com and search for American Fidget Story is the name of the t-shirt.
Of
and purchase it, and I will get $2 of the $30 that it sells for.
Oh my god, what a great deal. So maybe you send me the link and I'll put it in the show notes, so listeners, you can go to the show notes for this episode and click the link, buy that shirt.
The part of me wants it to like just become this huge t-shirt, and part of me thinks it's like the worst ever, but I've been like just making stupid t-shirts recently.
You want it to be the next Che shirt or whatever? Do you remember that?
The Che Leno.
Che Leno.
Another person like Jason Woner is another person whose aesthetic is exactly like what I enjoy. So that's why I ended up, I think, probably making the fidget spinner O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, bonus shout out to Jason Walliner at jwalliner on Twitter. Okay.
Yes.
So, I guess that brings us to the end of the show, and now I play the music and we say goodbye.
Okay.
So bye. Thanks so much for coming onto the show, Jeff.
No problem. Are we gonna post talk?
And then, check Jeff out on Twitter at Jeff DeSilva. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Jeff. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at FOTS Pod and send a question for future guests. You may also want to follow me online at Skinner Steven for all your pun needs. Next week's episode is a very fun one indeed. My guest is Sarah Joy Shockey at Sarah Joy Shockey on Twitter. It was one of the more fun episodes, so be sure not to miss it. Please subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast app, and also please rate and review. We just need a couple more reviews before Apple will publish a rating, so please help us out. As always, you can visit StephenWSkinner.com. It's got all the episodes and everything. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good one.